Hello everyone, this is a kind of follow-up to my decisions video as I'm going to be talking about all my stats and also kind of going through the Common App so I can help maybe give advice on things I think I did wrong. Pre-warning, I don't exactly know what I did wrong because I can't see my or the comments that application reviewers made on my application. But so pre-warning, but hopefully you find this interesting at least. We'll see. Okay, so we're gonna start off with my grades. And I just telling you guys I skipped the family and profile sections because those just cover a bunch of personal information that it's pretty self-explanatory. You just gotta go through those and fill those out. But starting with my grades, you can see my class size. That's not really that important, but what is important is looking at the GPA. So first of all, just giving you the GPA. My GPA was a 4.27, 2 out of a 4 scale. But word of advice, what I did accidentally on my when I was actually doing this for real is that I did a 5 because because technically my weighted GPA is out of 4.8, not 5, but I thought it was close enough. And I thought, well, since I'm giving my weighted GPA, I should give it what it's out of. But really, usually, I think what you're supposed to do is just put, or what I know now is what you're supposed to do is just put what your unweighted GPA is weighted out of, because like your GPA is obviously weighted, so it's gonna be higher than this, but that's fine. So where if it's your unweighted GPA is out of a 4 scale, then put whatever, then put a 4, right? So that's just a quick one about that, and then that's my GPA. Going on to current and most recent year courses. So for this is where you put all the courses you're taking as a senior. So I was taking 8 courses, and then I was taking Calculus BC, and looking at this, you can see that. So you put the subject name, and you can choose. Usually, they have a drop down menu. You can just choose that, and then you put the actual name in here, and then so you have to type this out, and then you're going to put what level it is. So it's either advanced placement, advanced accelerated, regular standard, dual enriched, whatever it is. You're gonna find that, put it in there, and then you're gonna either put first year or full year. But there also are other options, or maybe I can just show you right here. There's first year, first semester, second semester. So if it's a semester class like I had, an economics class that was second semester, and a physical education class that was first semester. So that's just kind of general overview for things you should be looking out for. And these are my classes. I took PE, economics, world literature, varsity band, aerospace engineering, AP Spanish, AP physics, and AP calc. Those are my senior year classes, if you were wondering. And so now moving on to honors. Section was rough for me. This was my worst section by far because I didn't enter any of my stuff and my personal projects into competitions, and also I wasn't in any groups. So, well, word of advice: if don't enter like the honors you get from groups. So like if you're in like a math team or like a math club or a science club or whatever, and you get like an honor, like a technically an honor, or like so you win some award before that club, then don't put that in here. These are for like if like national merit scholarships, would have AP Scholar with distinction, or other just like awards you get from competitions that aren't like especially specifically associated with one of your extracurriculars. Because if it's specifically associated, then you just put it in the description. But you can see this is my AP Scholar with distinction, and then academic award of excellence. This is just a award I got from my school for just academics, a National Honor Society. This was another like not like nominated for um, different honor society, and then honor society. So basically, I didn't have anything, so I just put a bunch of honor societies that I was in or nominated for, and like honor societies. They know what they are. Like college admissions officers know what they are. They don't really have to. There's nothing to explain. They understand. But the only reason you wouldn't put an honor society in here is if you were like a major part of that honor society, and so then you can talk about it as a extracurricular. So that's basically it. Honor societies or honors, it's not the most important, but it's definitely helpful to have some honors in there, and that was the part where I was lacking, and I think definitely hurt, especially not on this app, but on the MIT app. There's a lot of places for honors, and it was definitely hurting me there. So we can move on. The last part I want to talk about in this section is future plans. Just a quick note, that if you are whatever you choose as your major for that college, the college you're applying to, then make sure you align that with whatever your future plan is. So, say you want to be an engineering major, then you choose engineer, right? And this doesn't matter specifically. You can say undecided, whatever. I just said doctorate because I don't know. Maybe I want to get a doctorate. Who knows? And I just thought, put it highest up there. But yeah, it doesn't. This the part doesn't matter too much. But just make sure, so if you decide you want to do an economics, you want to apply as an economics major, they don't put like a scientist. You don't put, you know, whatever. You don't put a pharmacist, or maybe I guess you could put a physician. I don't know. But just make sure they align, or else the college admission officer, if they catch it, which they probably will, they're gonna be a little bit confused. So now moving on to testing. So you just select what test you took. ACT. I took the ACT, and I took the AP subject test. There's no thing for SAT subject test anymore. I don't think, because they got rid of, or I guess there is. You can, but I didn't take any because they got rid of them. I think my junior years or whatever. So I didn't take any of those, and I'm glad because I really did not want to take any more tests because there's so many standardized tests already that, yeah, I'm glad that they got rid of those. But you can see, so you just put in all your stuff for your ACT. I did not take the writing section for the ACT because there's not really any point to. High composite score. So then I think you can super score in here, but obviously they'll be able to tell that it's a super score. But all mine I didn't need to because I got my highest score from all in the same one. And, or I guess, why did I put here? Whatever. This should be 13 because I got them all on the same test date. But besides that, yeah, you can see my ACT score. That's basically all I have to cover. Oh, I guess I'll talk about this once I get done with the AP test. But for the AP test and ACT test, you should check what college, or if your college requires you to send them separately, because some colleges require you like to go to the AP test or a college board site or the ACT site and submit those separately. But besides that, so you can see my APs. So I'll start from the bottom because it starts in ninth grade. So ninth grade, I took AP U.S. Government and Politics. And then so that was my only AP class that year. And then in 10th grade, I took AP World History and AP Statistics. And then I ramped it up a lot in junior year. I took AP Computer Science Principles, which was a lot easier than I thought it would be. And then if you take recommendation, if you're gonna take, I would not take AP Computer Science Principles if your school offers Computer Science A, I think it's called. Take that instead because it's just a lot more worth it. You don't really learn much in Computer Science Principles. But then I took AP US History, and then AP US Liter or not US AP Literature and Composition, and AP Language and Composition, and I took AP Biology all in junior year. So yeah, and my point about this is just for stats is my plan was just to ramp up every year, and I got this idea from a college or listening to a college admissions officer who talked about how at Brown that they don't really care as much how many classes you're taking, or like what if you're right, how like they don't really care exactly what the classes are, as long as you're ramping it up. And obviously you're taking the hardest classes that you can at your school. So if your school doesn't offer any AP classes, then obviously you're not going to be really taking any AP classes. But unless you want to self study, but I don't really recommend that. I think it's a diminishing returns. But it's just they want to see you ramping things up, and they also want to see you challenging yourself as much as you can. And if you guys want to see the other classes I've taken as a freshman, sophomore, and junior, I guess leave it in the comment section below, and I could reply with a list if you want. But I didn't think it was that important to include that. Okay, now onto the big section, which is activities, and this is the part where I think I'm that my application just didn't stand, or it stood out, but I don't think it stood out like in the right way enough to help put me through in these schools. And this is because I'll also show you a lot of my activities. are individual activities that I did as a junior because before then I hadn't actually, or like I was too like scared and introverted to basically go out because I would worry what other people think about me. And what I mean is go out. I didn't try any clubs the first time. So I basically just did nothing. Like the only thing I did from in ninth and 10th grade was play hockey. That was my only like extracurricular activity. So in 10th or 11th grade, I basically ramped it up. And since COVID happening, I couldn't do any clubs, or I contacted two clubs, and they both said they're basically not doing anything. Like they're suspended indefinitely. And I think they started in the spring and stuff, but I basically took that as a cue just to do a bunch of personal activities or personal projects. So this is what I did. So I started with, or I didn't start with this, but these are the things I did. So my first thing was my first activity was my physics backpack, which is basically an iOS app. And the, the story is that I wanted to learn more about coding, so I created a couple apps using Python, and then I had to learn Swift and then change one of my apps to Swift, or change it from Python to Swift, or basically rewrite it in Swift, and then publish it on the App Store. And that's what I did with this. And so I spent, it was during 11th and 12th grade, and then quick notes for hours spent. Make sure that so don't be too worry about getting precisely the amount of hours you spent each week and precisely the amount of weeks you spend per year on your extracurricular activities. Just make sure it's like a true rough estimate, and also just make sure for the hours spent per week that all of the hours spent per week on all your activities doesn't add up to more hours than there are in the week. Also make sure it's like a little bit below, so you have time to sleep, and you have like it's a reasonable okay, because if it's like unreasonable, like you spend every waking like it says that you would basically spend every waking hour you know doing these activities, then it's going to be a little unbelievable. So just that's a quick word of advice. And so my second activity was that I created a portfolio of physics experiments. So basically, throughout junior and senior year, I did, or mainly during junior year and the summer of junior year, but a little bit during senior year as well, as I performed 21 different experiments in a lot of different parts of physics. So I did a lot with renewable energy. So a lot with all with solar panels. So I tested solar panels efficiency under different debris. So like one of them was like sand, dirt, snow, salt, a lot of that, and then I tested solar panel efficiency at different angles. So turning the best angle, and then I did a couple other ones with solar panels, and then I did a rudimentary Cavendish experiment, which is basically an experiment that tests to find the universal gravitational constant. And so those are kind of couple. I'll show you a list of them at the end. But I think the problem with this is while it was cool, it's really hard to actually show this to colleges because I had a bunch of lab reports. Like, so I wrote a bunch of lab reports, with like hypothesis, methods, experimental procedure, conclusions, sources of error, and applications. They were like 2 to 3 pages long. But I had 21 of these, and so I got this idea from someone who got into Stanford, and he said that he was able to submit a portfolio of his experiments to a bunch of colleges, and he thought that was a major reason why he got in to a lot of these top schools. And so I thought that was a great idea, and I did this, but like realizing when I was submitting that like most application portals do not have a place where you can actually submit this, and if it is, it's like not really meant for this type of thing, especially not for 21. So I don't, so I think that was also part of the problem with my application is that I might have been overbearing for my or like the person who looked at my application, they might have biased them against me, which I could totally understand because I submitted for like Harvard and Cornell and a couple other ones. I submitted 21 different documents with different experiments I'd done because there was no really place I could find it. And for some of them, they had places for like scientific like research and stuff, but that was like for a research like project, like a big research project. So that's what I recommend instead is just to do a big research like so instead of spending so much time on like a bunch of individual experiments, if you like this idea, spend a bunch of time on one big experiment and try to contact a professor to get them involved because it will probably help you in the long. It'll help like the experiments, research more in depth and look better, but also it's more of what these colleges are looking for. So that's what I recommend for that. And if you want to see for good activities, I recommend searching up MIT Maker portfolios for science-based activities, and also Brown video portfolios, because they also those have some more humanities. But basically, yeah, those have some good ideas, and I looked at those a little too late once I actually submitted my application. But if you still have time, I would definitely recommend looking at those videos because they're really good. And then my third activity was I self-published a book on Amazon, so you can go search it up. It's called Gateways to the Quantum World. It's basically introductory quantum physics book meant for like sixth graders, seventh graders, around that age. It's pretty good, and I think again, the problem with this is that the problem with this and my app was that I just don't think they weren't good enough at what they're supposed to be doing, which they're supposed to be helping people, and they just didn't help people enough in the sense I didn't reach out to like local school. Like what I should have done was reach out to local schools and teachers in my school district and said, hey, I have this, introductory, book to quantum physics, which I think is a really interesting subject for a lot of kids, and that maybe inspires them to go into more science or physics, and say, can you put this in your room, or have your kids recommend, or like say, or not recommend, or maybe recommend, whatever, your kids read this, and maybe reach out to a local paper, and so then apply it more, like get some real world results. And say for my app, I could, if I would have done that and I was able to like talk about that or put that in the description, of this activity, then I think it would have helped a lot. And for these descriptions, I'll go down to my next thing, which is hockey, which is literally the only club activity, or like the only club I was actually in. But for descriptions, it's just supposed to be like short little like things. So talk about maybe just the highlights, because then you can add more in the additional information, which I'll show you in a second. But so yeah, that's what I think the problem is for like these my top two of my top three um, two of my top three activities was I just didn't apply them enough. And idea, if you want to apply something like this instead of for coding, if you're interested in coding, try to learn website development, and especially during COVID, this is really applicable. Is help local businesses either remodel or renovate their website, or creating a website for them, because that's a really good idea. And I think it's you could learn coding skills, but also help communities in in your local area. And then my fifth activity was I did research at the U of M in a cancer lab. And again, this I think the problem mainly was this is that it wasn't in my area of interest. Is that it's a cancer lab, and I was interested in physics and engineering. I did it more just because I wanted to get some research experience, but also I think another problem was that I didn't get it, like I should have asked. So I worked with a technician, which means, um, but I should have asked that like the person I was working with, that if they could help me like do a little small assignment, or like a small like research project around what they're that I could have basically submitted to colleges. And I think that would have at least made that better, at least made this activity a lot better. So if you do research, or do like try to get a research opportunity, make sure first you submit a ton of cold emails, which basically just means emails to random professors that you're interested in, because a lot of them won't respond, and a lot of them will say we don't take high schoolers, and a lot of them will say we don't have room, or can't take you, sorry. But there will be one or two, or most likely one, that will take you. And this, I got really unlucky because COVID, most like all the professors at email basically said, I just can't, we can't take any high schoolers right now because of restrictions. But luckily, I was able to get in this one. It wasn't in my area of interest, and I don't really recommend, trying not to go out of your interest. But yeah, and that's basically, you know, I have activities, like the rest of the activities. So first of all, you don't have to fill out all the activities, and if you want to, then just add some hobbies. But that's basically the activity section. I have some community service, but everybody really does. I mean, most people do community, some type of community service, so it's not anything that's going to make you stand out. Then I put some or then I put this, but this is my, I was a member of the marching band leadership team, but I didn't think this was that important. It didn't really take up much time you know of my or basically just my time outside of school. so I just didn't rate it as high because you rate things from one, your first activity is your most important, and then your 10th activity is your least important. And then I just put YouTube channel, basically a hobby. You can go watch some of my old coding videos, and they're even worse quality than this, which is saying something. And then I just have my hobby of playing piano and powerlifting slash weightlifting, which there you go. You can see my PRs. And let's see, I think that's really it. My only recommendation for the activity section is that if you have like a familial commitment, like you work in the store of your mom and dad's, or you're working in your mom and dad's store, or you're taking care of someone, and takes up a considerable amount of your time, then put it in here definitely because it will, definitely the colleges will take that into account, and they treat that, they would get that a lot of weight. Like for instance, I saw a person who got into Harvard early action, who their main activity was that they, worked at their mom and dad's store. That was their main thing, and they really didn't have a lot of. They had some other activities, but that was their main thing because it took up the majority of their time outside of school, and obviously they got some good results from that. So take it as you will. But the last thing is writing. So you can see my personal essay, I guess, if you want. I'll just scroll through it real quick. You can slow down the video if you want. It's not. Obviously it's not. I can't tell if it was good or not because I don't know. I didn't get really any good results with it. So take it as you will. If you want to read it, there. It's in the video. And then, so if you're thinking about doing COVID, quick note, if you're thinking about doing COVID for your personal essay, do not, because they literally have a space where you can put your, whatever, however COVID affected you in the Common App. So it's basically indicating to you, do not write about COVID in your personal essay. They do not want to hear about COVID because I'm sure everybody is writing about COVID. So they do not want to hear about COVID. Just put it in here if you have something that, how COVID, if it affected you in like a major way outside of school or like in your grades, whatever it is, put it in here. And then the last part is basically just additional information. There should be, if you have any extenuating circumstances that maybe affected another part of the application, you want to put in there, or additional information for your extracurricular activities. Man, that's a duty. But just put those in here, and I would not recommend. I filled this up way too much with information. It was way too much information. I would not recommend doing that because it adds so much more reading for the applicant reviewer to do, and it's they're human. They're gonna they try not to get, they probably try not to get biased, but when you put 597 extra words like I did in here of just extra details about extracurricular activities, it gets a little bit overbearing, and so I wish I didn't put as much. So maybe 300 words or something, just quick details to maybe explain stuff that you mentioned in your extracurricular or activity section, or some extenuating circumstances. But do not put an additional essay in here. Do not put like write another like Common App essay and put it in here because that's not what they want to see. That's even worse than what I did, right? And then I guess I should cover this real quick. Courses and grades. I used to have my courses and grades in here because the University of Minnesota requires it, and so does Stanford. I don't know why, because it's basically the same information that you see on your transcript. They all get a copy of your transcript, or you should be sending them all a copy of your transcript. But for some reason, some colleges require you to self-report your grades. So yeah, it's not that hard. It's pretty straightforward. You just have to. It just takes a lot of effort, or it just takes a lot of time. But besides that, that's really it. That's it. Those were the stats and extracurriculars and writings and basically application that got me rejected from 14 of the 18 schools I applied to. And so hopefully you found that interesting and you found some of my advice helpful and were able to apply it to your own application. If you have any comments, leave them down in the comment section below. And without further ado, goodbye.